Hello, my name is Jenna Blumenfeld. I'm the product content strategist at Stream, and joining me today is Mina Sartipi. Mina is the founding director of the Center for Urban Informatics and Progress, CUIP, at the University of Tennessee Chattanooga. Mina, thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
So to start, could you please describe your work at CUIP? Why was it founded in Chattanooga specifically, and the mission that you have?
Sure. Well, I'm a faculty of computer science at UTC, University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. And the work that I have been doing for the past almost 20 years has been related to sensors, to wireless sensor network, from communication and also from data processing perspective. And a lot of the work that we were doing with the students were done in the lab environment until I got involved more with some of the activities that have been done at the city. And through that, a lot of work became related to the smart city work that city was interested in, and they had also some activities going on. And then that became a way that this CUIP Center for Urban Informatics and Progress was established a little bit over 2 years ago, with the goal of addressing the challenges that urban has and making sure that urban is accessible, healthy, and livable for all. And I think some of the things that we're working on is a true multidisciplinary work. It's all colleges on campus are involved with that. And that is one of our goals, because we want to make sure that none of these problems are solved in silos. We want to make sure that we are all talking to each other. We are looking at it from different perspectives, and also making sure that no one is left out. So the areas that we are working on is energy, health, mobility, public safety, and social science. And social science is actually kind of involved with all the activities. And we work very closely with the city of Chattanooga. In fact, there is a smart collaborative Chattanooga community, which has 7 entities. We have City of Chattanooga, we have Hamilton County, EPB, which is our power and communication company. We have the Enterprise Center, CoLab is a startup incubator, and Erlanger, the hospital, and UTC. And through the collaborative work that we do with these 7 entities, we learn a lot about the challenges that the city is facing, about a lot of issues that, in fact, that we all know that we are living in the urbanization century. 2/3 of the population going to live in urban environment. So this is going to have its challenges and opportunities. So what are the specific challenges for us? What are the opportunities for us to address? And through this collaborative, we're learning more about those, because we have different people at the table that we constantly meet and discuss this. And the other thing about it is we don't want to just this be a research that we're all just going to be working in our lab and be forgotten in a couple of years. We want to make sure that this can be implemented and can be adopted. It's important that a lot of solutions might come out, but no one wants to pick it up. The citizens are the ones that would be eventually the adopters of this technology. And then that would make this research more impactful and more meaningful. And to answer your question specifically about the Chattanooga, over 10 years ago, EPB actually built a fiber optic network that covers the whole 600 square mile area of their territory, which that provided an opportunity that they can have all the residents and businesses in Chattanooga can have access to internet up to 10 gigabit per second, which is a great opportunity, the fast internet. And it was a very recent study showed that fiber optic had contributed over $2 billion back to the community benefit. And this provided us an opportunity to be doing a lot of work that we are doing, because that broadband exists. So we don't have to worry about it's a smart city. It's a lot of data that we're talking about, right? So that fiber optic is a backhaul for us that makes sure that there's no problem with the data in terms of bandwidth, in terms of latency and such. So that also had provided us that opportunity from that perspective.
So is Chattanooga the only city in the US that has fiber optic available for every citizen?
Chattanooga was the first city in US that has that. There are other cities as well now. One of the things that it's kind of unique about Chattanooga, it's owned by their utility, which is a public company. So it's not by another company that came, another private sector that comes and put the fiber in the city. So that's a little bit of a different. And the goal for EPB is to make sure that the community comes first. It's a very people and community oriented company.
Awesome. So in what ways does your team leverage APIs to help Chattanooga kind of improve this citizen experience? And why are APIs a valuable tool for your work?
Whenever we talk about these type of applications that we are looking at, okay, how can we improve citizens' life? And what does really that means? It's we look at it from different aspects. One is how can we improve, for example, the traffic, the pedestrian and cyclist safety. Where are the accidents happening? How can we, why are they happening? How can we mitigate them? From health perspective, what are the things that we can do with the telehealth, with mobile health? And the same thing with energy. How can we make the buildings more energy efficient and such? So there is a lot of different projects in different sectors that are all going on. But what goes underneath all of them is a vast amount of data that we have to deal with, right? And we are having a lot of consumers of these data that they want to come and use this data for their applications. At the same time, we have people that are actually using this data and provide that data back, like produce some applications that put the data back into our data infrastructure. So there's a lot of those type of things going on. And what is needed when we are talking about this vast amount of data is we want to make sure that it's a low latency transaction. We want to make sure that it's high throughput, it's flexible, it's scalable. Tomorrow there might be 100 other cameras, 100 LiDARs. I mean, it's just, we want to make sure that there is a system that has all these traits that people can always, like the researchers, the other, in some cases, actually, we have citizens that are writing simple apps that they want to have access. Do they all need to be data science, that they know what's going on behind the scene and how can I have access to that data? They really don't, right? I mean, that would put basically a lot of burden on them and potentially stop them right there. So the fact that we have this API would provide them to be able to access this data, to have the query of this data, and then they process it for what they need to do with the data. They don't need to know what's going on behind it. And the different people have different needs and they are looking for different things. Like we have applications that are looking for the average of traffic during the weekends. Someone might come and say, no, I want the real-time traffic, or I want to know what happened 2 years ago. But API would provide us that opportunity, that it would give us a set of rules that these are the things that you can follow and that you would be able to access whatever you would need to for your applications. And that is what the data infrastructure, the way that it built, would be scalable and such, would actually was where we spend a lot of our time at the beginning to make sure that we have the infrastructure that can tolerate all of these and can grow with us as we grow, and as our project, as the data grows, that can as well grow. And we are, for example, we're making dashboards that the city can have access to it. And they don't need to know anything about that. They're through the API, they can have access to it. We use other APIs. We use API for dark sky, for example. Weather is one of the major factors in a lot of things, for example, accidents. So when we have that data there, someone that wants to use our data, they don't need to go back to dark sky and get the weather data. They have all of them there with whatever we have, and then they can just access all of them together.
Awesome. So you mentioned a little bit about some of your specific projects that you're doing, and it seems like managing accidents and kind of transportation of people is one of the big ones. So could you go a little bit more into that project, and also like how APIs are an integral part of that project?
Sure. So basically, the APIs are the core functionality of our data infrastructure, because as I mentioned, they're the ones that are providing us low latency access to the data collection and such. And the transportation that you just mentioned, those applications, they need that real-time data access. And that is what is collected and is available through the API that we are having. And and there are several projects that we're working on. We have different IoT devices. One of our projects, actually, maybe I can talk more about it, is our testbed. We have Mlk Smart Corridor. It's 1.25 miles of testbed in downtown Chattanooga. It's next to the campus. We have 10 signalized intersection that we have put different IoT. It's cameras, LiDARs, audio, radar, and we have edge computing capability, different wireless communication capabilities on them, and more. So this is really a we call it the sandbox. It really is a sandbox for us to test a lot of these, right? Because we are going to be, we all like it or not, moving more through automation. Is it going to be fully autonomous? That's debatable, and I don't think this is the topic for this talk. But regardless of that, we would need that connected infrastructure, because each vehicle currently is relying on what they have on board to process what's going on around them. To make it more safer, to make it more efficient, we need to have that connected infrastructure that they would know what's going on around them. So to be able to do that, we are collecting a lot of data. As I mentioned, some of them are real-time raw data that we are collecting, and we're putting in our data infrastructure, and users can come and use the API to access directly to that real-time data. But not everyone, again, is a computer vision expert. Not everyone is knowing that, okay, was that a bus? Was that a SUV? Or was it a pedestrian? Or what was the traffic flow? You know, a lot of these data comes, when we are talking about them, it's not just a computer scientist on the table, right? We have traffic engineer, we have civil engineer, we have different expertise at the table when we talk about this. So we are also users of our data. We use those data and provide it in a more meaningful back to our data infrastructure. And the API, then whoever is using it, they can come and either access the raw data that they need, and perhaps I should open a parenthesis there, every raw data for everything except the videos. Okay. Privacy is one of our main concerns. I just want to put that in parentheses there and then close it. And then, so they can have access to the raw data if they want. They can access to the batch data. So we actually do the historical data that you come and say that I want to look at the data for the past month. We were looking at, for example, for the accidents, we wanted to look at the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, because our data showed the number of accidents went down, the traffic was down, but the severity and number of fatalities went up. So this is like what you can go to that data infrastructure and just basically say, I want to look at the historical data, this date, and then just compare them. So that's API that we have for this. It will provide easier access and potentially more meaningful projects that can be done by others. So it's not just limited to the experts that they want to come and work. It would just be easy, accessible for others to use it as well.
Wonderful. That's so interesting. So it seems like APIs provide a lot of solutions for your work and for the city of Chattanooga. What are some of the limitations or unrealized potentials of APIs, maybe looking forward?
And I think one of the things that I would see about this is the architecture of the APIs are adapting, you know, as the need for the type of data is changing, especially for smart cities. You know, new technologies come, new ways that we can access different type of data that we didn't have it before, right? I mean, a lot of things that I can talk about is we are having some cheaper air quality sensors, for example, now that we couldn't have it long ago, right? Like a few years ago, you would have to have like those expensive, very accurate, very precise air quality data, but that's not something that you can put it at every intersection when you want to look at the impact of that on the impact of air quality on the health, public health, right? So I think as the smart city is evolving, the data that is generating, the type of the data that is generating is changing. And the architecture of API is also adapting to that. And for example, the Mlk that I just mentioned, I think the data that we are really collecting from Mlk is very scarce. It's fairly unique, actually. There are not that many other places that they would have access to such infrastructure. And for one thing, is like this infrastructure is actually owned by the university and the city. So there's no middleman there that we have to be working with. So this is providing us a lot of opportunities, and for us is just basically to be able to analyze this data, collect all this data and such. It's very valuable. And I think the way I would see it is like API is really a single component of a much larger network that we are dealing with, that would help us to collect this vast amount of data that is generated by smart cities, generally speaking.
Awesome. And finally, you know, it seems like Chattanooga is almost this litmus test for examining how big data and integrated systems can improve citizen life. But is this happening in other cities across the United States? And if not, what will it take to pioneer smart cities in other areas?
I don't know if you're familiar with G20 Smart City Alliance. but they had just chosen 36 cities globally to use them as a pilot. And the goal for that is to make sure that these smart city activities are efficient, or the equity is there. You know, there's a lot going on. And what I want to also mention here is a lot of times smart city is just seen as data, AI, you know, artificial intelligence. It is that, but it's way more than that. You know, we are talking about me living in this community, you know, and I'm one of the data points, and we are not seeing it as numbers, right? So there's a lot more behind this, and I really appreciate what they're trying to do, coming up with the basically a guideline to make sure that these smart cities are effective. At the same time, we are considering that we're dealing with citizens, with the communities and such. So there were, out of those 36 cities that I mentioned, 2 of them are in US. Chattanooga was one of them, and the other city is San Jose in California. So I think there are definitely these activities going on. Other cities are, we work with a lot of other cities in US that collaborating with them as well. It's just there's a lot of activities going on at universities, at research labs, and we actually know that the limitation of our expertise, so we always reach out to others and work with them, and we are expanding that also to some other industry partners as well, because they also want to be able to test some of these technologies. So as long as it like basically follows the mission of what we have and the vision that us and the city and all the collaborative basically has, we will be doing that collaboration. So yes, there are other cities, and I think there are activities similar going on in other places, and it's actually a very collaborative environment overall, even among the cities and different entities that are working on this.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. All about APIs, it's really interesting, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.